There are plenty of viable options for Gameweek 13 captaincy. That's because the typical options have difficult fixtures. I've whittled the shortlist down to the top 3, and we're going to carry out data analysis to get it down to the top 1. First up is a player that's almost always on the shortlist. That's Haaland, but he has got a difficult fixture against Liverpool, but at least it's at home. Another player with the home advantage is Son. He gets to face Villa, which is a slightly easier fixture than Liverpool, and you'll see that later on in the video when we take a look at the opposition stats. Lastly is Salah against City away. Not only is the only player on the shortlist to not have the home advantage, I'd argue that he's facing the most difficult opponent from an attacking perspective in the whole league. To be honest, I think there's 8 players that you could captain this game week. You could include Eze, Saka, Solanke, Watkins, and Bowen if he's declared fit, but obviously I had to narrow it down so we could carry out the data analysis. I'd say some of those players are quite far behind first place though, to be fair, when it comes to the data. Anyway, we'll start by taking a look at the non-penalty stats per 90 minutes for this season. First of all, it's very close between Haaland and Salah, but Haaland just about pips it. I think it is more impressive for Haaland to be ahead, because for every non-penalty goal and every non-penalty expected goal, he gets 1 less point than Salah, and that's all included in the calculations. On the flip side, for picking your players this game week, it does benefit Salah and Son that they are midfielders, because they do get that extra point per goal scored, and they've got the clean sheet point potential as well. To be honest with you, I don't think Liverpool will keep a clean sheet at the Etihad, and I don't think Spurs will keep a clean sheet against Villa either. Well, back to the numbers, we discussed Haaland's and Salah's, and to be fair to Son, he is keeping up with the pace in terms of the non-penalty return points. It's his expected numbers that aren't good enough though. It is the underlying stats that are better at projecting the future return points than the actual return points themselves. And I do get that Son's one of the best finishers in the world, but for example, that could also be said about Haaland as well. Things do change, and those stats probably will regress. In fact, if you look at last season's numbers, Haaland was completely overperforming, and Son wasn't overperforming. It just shows how much variance there is in this game. So I'd say that Haaland's and Salah's underlying stats are promising. As for Son's, they are quite risky. I'm not writing Son off though. You could argue that he's got the easiest fixture out of the 3 players on the shortlist, and he is playing out of position. They're the non-penalty stats. Both Haaland and Salah are on penalty duties for their respective clubs. As for Son, it is questionable because Spurs haven't got a penalty this season. I think Richarlison could possibly put in a better case because he has got a much better penalty record, but Son is the talisman and Maddison's out sidelined, so you never know, he probably will end up taking them. Another thing with Maddison being sidelined, there is a chance that Son could take a direct free kick. As for Salah, he occasionally takes the direct free kicks, but that is quite rare, and Haaland doesn't take any, and none of the players on the shortlist take any indirect free kicks or corners. Moving on to the probability, Haaland's got the highest anytime goal scorer odds by 7% ahead of Son. Salah's quite far behind. Son's got the highest anytime assister odds, but it's not enough to compensate for the anytime return odds. Haaland's got the most by 3%. Again, Salah's quite far behind because he's got the lowest anytime assister odds as well. To be fair, if we consider the weighted odds where Son and Salah get 5 points for every goal scored, Haaland only gets 4. Salah's weighted odds are actually not that bad, and you could argue that Son's are actually slightly better than Haaland's. In all fairness, Haaland's got the highest chance of success, therefore the lowest chance of blanking. I'd say it's neck and neck between Haaland and Son. Salah's miles behind on the points projections as well. He's only got 4.5 on Fantasy Football Fix and 4.4 on FPL Review. It's Haaland who's got the highest figure overall. He's 0.1 ahead of Son on FPL Review. Now you might be wondering why Fantasy Football Fix have got Haaland on 2.9. That's because when they're flagged in the game, they do get a reduced points projection, and that's just whilst this video has been recorded. By the time it's been published, that flag might have been removed. So with that not being a fair projection, I would take it with a pinch of salt, and based on what we've just seen with the probability and the FPL review projection, I think it would be quite similar to Son's. By comparing the opposition's defence, we can see that Salah's got the most difficult fixture. I get that Haaland's facing Liverpool, who have actually conceded less goals per 90 minutes than City, but it's the expected numbers that matter better at projecting the future goals conceded than the actual goals conceded themselves, and I will mention that with the players, but it applies to the teams as well. We can see that Son's got the easiest fixture, with Villa having the highest expected goals conceded figure and the highest goals conceded, but there isn't much between the underlying stats of Villa and Liverpool in defence. Despite Villa having a slightly weaker defence than Liverpool, it's Liverpool who's actually got the lowest clean sheet odds with 11% across all 20 teams this game week. That's of course because Haaland gets to play in the best attack in the league, which is a benefit. Also, Maddison is sidelined for Son, so that brings the clean sheet odds up slightly for Villa. Before we make a decision, we're going to carry out a quick risk assessment. I've not got any concerns over the recovery days since the international break. They've all had an adequate amount of resting time. Now, there were concerns during the international break whether Haaland was injured or not. He has been pictured in training recently, and the second match that he missed for Norway was a nothing match anyway. They had nothing to play for. This is being recorded ahead of City's press conference. If Haaland sidelined this game week, I think Son is the standout captain pick. Now, with Son not having Maddison behind him and all that extra creativity, I think that puts Son slightly behind Haaland. So I think if Haaland's fit to play, he's my favourite captain this game week. If you do want to go differential, I don't think there's much between Salah, Eze, Saka, Solanke, Watkins and Bowen if he's declared fit. It's entirely up to you if you want to take the risk, but I think the top two are Haaland and Son. And if you are going to take the risk, I do think this is one of the better game weeks to do it in. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of them. I've also published a team selection video if you want to watch that. Thanks for watching.